Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of Diane Stanley Sews and Knits. This is a podcast about sewing, knitting, crafting, a little bit of gardening, and random thoughts thrown in. I'm coming to you from Yorba Linda, California. We're approaching Memorial Day weekend here in the United States, and looking forward to a beautiful weekend, maybe a picnic, or I know we're watching our granddaughter on Saturday, so we'll see how the weather pans out. Today is a gloriously beautiful spring day. Big white fluffy clouds, blue sky, and a nice moderate temperature, maybe not even 70 degrees, which is my absolute favorite. Today this is episode 2, and hopefully I come to you with a little bit more content, a little less nerves, and hopefully a few more followers to see just what I'm up to. The last 2 weeks I was super busy getting ready for a fiber festival, and it was only my second vending experience, so I really wanted to be well prepared and have a lot for people to choose from. It was put on by the Southern California Weaving and, I'm going to get it correct here, Southern California Hand Weavers Guild, and it was in Torrance, California. I was only one of the few people who had hand-dyed yarn there. There was a lot of supplies for spinning and weaving, but not a lot just for knitting and crochet, so that was really good for me. I got a lot of wonderful compliments and feedback on my booth and my yarn. And I also offered some handmade bags for project bags or storage for knitting needles. So I will be putting those in my Etsy store soon, but I haven't had time to photograph them yet. My Etsy store is called Dye Lots Studio, and you can find me on Etsy. Now let's go on to what I'm wearing. I'm wearing the Sew Faded sweater by Andrea Mowry. I made it about 2 years ago, and it was my first hand knit sweater. Even though I've been knitting since I was a child, it was always, little straight things. And then about 8 years ago, I really got serious about knitting and started with socks. And after 6 years of knitting socks, I decided I needed to branch out and try something new. So I started with Andrea's sweater, and I bought a faded kit from Hue Loco, and the colors here that I've got are Cutie Pie, Primrose, Peony, Pink Peppercorn, and the bottom one is Girl Talk. It fades from yellow to pink to gray, and it's a nice light fingering weight sweater, so it's easily worn in California pretty much all year long, except not in the summer, of course, when it's very, very hot here. I learned a lot. I made a lot of mistakes on this sweater, but learned a lot of what I like to knit and how I like to knit. This was the first project that I tried to do continental knitting instead of throwing the yarn, and I still go back and forth between the two. I'm not good on purling continental, but I can knit continental, and I prefer that. I've been having a lot of wrist problems lately, and I have a feeling I have carpal tunnel syndrome, which is not good, but especially for a knitter and a hand dyer. But maybe with some rest it'll get better. My recently finished projects and off the needles is my Birds of a Feather shawl, also by Andrea Mowry. And you'll find a theme to this podcast. There's a lot of Andrea Mowry being spoken for some reason. She's one of my favorite knitwear designers, and it seems that I gravitate toward her patterns. This is the Birds of a Feather shawl, and I offer kits for this in my shop, but this thing is huge. I think my husband and I figured it's got like a 12-foot wingspan. It's made in my feather colorway, and this is the wool cashmere nylon base, and then this is mohair, And it's got a simple lace pattern, and it just goes on and on and on. It's easily worn on cool summer nights, cool fall nights, but because it's so large, you can wrap it and wear it all sorts of ways. I've got it here on my Beatrice body form, once again, and I use that a lot for sewing and fitting. After finishing this project, I was anxious to cast on something new and couldn't decide, so I cast on 2 new sweaters. And the first is here in my fringe town bag, and I decided to make another Andrea Mowry pattern. This is the Weekender sweater, and I dyed yarn specifically for this sweater for me because it's a base that I don't know if I'm going to carry because it's non-superwash, and people just aren't a fan of non-superwash. I love it. I love the way it dyes, and I love the way it feels, but you know, the care is a little iffy, and people really want easy. So this is how far I've gotten so far. And you can see it's a really pretty gray. Let's see if I can get it to focus. Maybe not on my face. It's a really pretty gray with a little bit of chocolate speckles, and it's just soft and squishy and wonderful. I'm knitting it on my ChiaoGoo needles, and got a little Sucra project keeper. So this one I think will just fly off the needles because it is with worsted weight yarn, and I really want to make it and finish it, even though by the time I finish it, it will be too warm to wear it this year, but maybe later on as the year goes on. I also cast on this weekend the Granito sweater, and I think I showed you the colors that I was going to make. This is the Granito sweater, and it's by Joji Locatelli, and it's a fingering weight sweater, and I forgot to get the other yarn out, so let me pause this just one second. I'm back. So I saw that Christy Glass had made this sweater, and she made it with crop sleeves. She didn't even finish it, and she made it a fade, and I thought it was just so pretty, and I had dyed up this fade set and decided to keep one for myself. So this is on my Uno fingering weight, and this is the color Cottage Blue. And you can see if I can make it focused. That's Cottage Blue. This is Amherst Gray. We have Sea Salt. And the last one is Quietude. The whole collection I called the Beach Cottage collection. And I haven't gotten very far because, like I said, my hand's really been hurting, and this sweater is knit back and forth to start with, and so the purl stitches really hurt my hand. But you can see just how pretty it is. This is a sweater I think I'll get a lot of use out of. It's got really cute pockets and seaming detail. Faux seaming detail, I should say. I don't know if you can see here on along the bust, it's almost like a princess seam, and then it's got pockets. It's just so cute. And who knows, I might even make the full-length sleeve. We'll see how much I am enjoying knitting it, but we have a handyman here. I think I'm going to have to stop for a few minutes. Okay, I'm back. We have a handyman here working on, we've had a leak and we just found out that we just had the whole house painted on the inside. Now we have a leak, and he has to cut into the ceiling, and there's water everywhere, and it never ends. Anyway, back to what I was telling you about. I am going to make the Granito sweater, and I've showed you the yarn. So now let's go on to Oops, I Did It Again. And that's what I'm calling when I buy fabric or yarn. First of all, when I was at the show this weekend, there was a booth next to me. I did not have time to walk the show at all because as a vendor, you can't get away from your booth. So but there was someone vending next to me. They were from a downtown Los Angeles store, and I can't remember the name of it. But she had this gorgeous yarn, and it's non-superwash. And you can see these beautiful colors. I have no idea what I'm going to make out of it yet. But this is Cloud9 Fibers. It's 80% wool, 20% silk. It's fingering weight. This is the color Misty. I don't know if it's focusing. I think it is. And this is the color Amber Waves. Both are just gorgeous. And I love them together, and I've got to come up with a project to make something with these. And then I did a really big oops, I did it again. I have been dying to make something with Spin Cycle yarn, and of course back to Andrea Mowry. She's been using it a lot lately, and her Shifty sweater. So I bought sweaters quantity, and one of the podcasts I watch, the 3-Ply podcast, their segment for acquisitions is Don't Tell My Husband. That's a perfect name for this because this one's expensive. All right, so I bought the Family Jewels, and this will be the majority background of the sweater. I need to hold something up. And in case anybody's been living under a rock, this is the Shifty sweater. And so I'm going to do this way better. Maybe it'll focus a little better. This is the Family Jewels. This is Narcissus. This is Frosty Night. And this one is Rusted Rainbow. It's a perfect name. I find as a yarn dyer, the hardest thing is to think of names for the yarn. My granddaughters like getting involved in this, and I've let them name a few because really they think of some really good ideas. So I'm going to wait a week or so till I get some of these other sweaters started a little bit more, get a little more done on the other two, and then I'm going to cast on the Shifty. I don't have a shawl cast on yet, although I have one that I have not finished. I'm just not into it. But, you know, it's all what you want to do, right? Now, on to sewing. I belong to a quilting bee that I started about, I think, 8 years ago. And we're in our 7th season because we take, August and December off, so it runs into the next year. And this month, our bee mate Bridget asked for birdhouses and birds. So I've been wanting to make a pineapple block. So I thought, how fun to make a pineapple birdhouse. So this is what I've made for Bridget. And she wanted pastels. So we've got some light colors in here. And then this bird pattern is free on Pinterest, and I could not find the designer, but it's really cute. So that's what I'm sending Bridget this month. And then also, Me Made May, I have not made one new sewn one new clothing item. But I've been buying lots of fabric to after the show is over. So hopefully in the next week or so I can get some sewing done. I bought this linen. It's a linen rayon blend, and I just found it at Joann's Fabrics here in California, and it's really nice. It's been pre-washed, and it'll be, you know, linen wrinkles so badly, but this one, because it has the rayon in it, it doesn't wrinkle quite as badly. And I want to make the Justine skirt, and I'm also going to make the Jilly blouse out of it. I don't think I would wear them together, but I can wear the blouse with something else. And so that's kind of all that's going on right now. I've made some notes, and hopefully it doesn't seem like I don't know what I'm talking about this time. I'm still looking down a lot, I know that, and I'll get better with it. My son, who's a podcaster, told me he wants to come and do a podcast with me, and he'll interview me, and then we can maybe get a different mojo going. I don't know if you can see my gorgeous peonies that Mr. Romance brought me today. It's peony season, and I take every advantage that I can to enjoy them because the season is so short. So I've put them here in a drawer so that you can enjoy them too. And that's it for today. Thank you for joining me. You can find all the links. I'll link to all the things that I'm making and where to find me on Instagram and everything in the down bar below. Thank you so much for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you again in 2 weeks.